I'm 39, I'm a solicitor, I'm a mum of 3, which I can't quite believe because I got to 35 before I had my first baby, and now I've got 3 caesarean sections, and life's completely changed. I actually didn't want another caesarean. I was very concerned about it, not because I'd had particularly bad experiences the first time. The first time was emergency section, the second time was elective. Just the spinal block had gone a bit high on the second one, so I'd spoken to the anaesthetist and so on. I'd got myself a bit wound up about the operation this time, and so I was a little bit more concerned. But when I went to hospital, I couldn't fault them really, and they discussed with me the anaesthetic and so on, and they talked to me a bit more about aftercare, maybe a bit more than they'd done previously, and taught me about the new dressing and so on that I could have after the operation. When I'd had my other 2 operations, the dressing that was applied then, really I couldn't see it really particularly, but I could feel it, and if I looked in the mirror, it was more of just like a pad, I suppose, over the incision, and it was taken off by one of the midwives the following morning. This time they suggested that I had this dressing. I was quite happy to do so because of the benefits. They told me there'd be less chance of infection and so on, and it would heal up better if I had the dressing applied. So I agreed to that, and in all fairness, it was amazing straight away. I was up and about as soon as I got the feeling back in my legs. The baby was put in the crib at the end of the bed to start with, and I was able to get her, which was completely different to the other 2 times when I'd been a bit ginger really with the wound and doubled up. I couldn't stand up straight. Certainly this time, the way that I would describe it was everything felt held in and quite tight really, whereas previously it felt maybe as though if you stood up a bit quickly, your insides would fall out. But this time, all very compact and all very neat and all very tight. So that was really, really good, and it meant that I was moving about more quickly, felt better in myself, because once you've got going, you feel less groggy, I suppose. So now everything was fine, it was good. Though I had 2 little spots that hadn't closed up in quite the same way as the rest of the incision. The rest of the incision was fine, but they were in places where I'd previously had infections with my other sections, so I think that maybe the tissue had been a bit compromised in any event in those 2 places. So for me, it might have been better for another week. I had a wound infection with Ruby, and in fact I think one of the stitches came through as well, and that was infected. So that took a while to get rid of, because I seem to recall it had become quite established as well, the infection then. And then with Lola, that was an elective section, but again I ended up with a wound infection that I seem to recall I had to have 2 different antibiotics for that one, and iodine dressings as well. So that was quite severe, and it took quite a lot of getting rid of. And it's just horrible to have the infection and all that goes with it. Really, it takes the shine off it a little bit, because I was worried about it, and I didn't know whether it would lead to any bigger complications or anything like that. Fortunately it didn't, but that was always in the back of my mind. Whereas this time, because I could see that the incision was healed up a lot better, and there were only 2 little bits that weren't really healed up, straight away I wasn't as worried about it this time. And certainly the midwife, when she looked at the incision, she was really pleased with it, and she said it's healed up really well, and the doctor as well. The scar's fine, it's just like a line. It seems already a lot better than the other 2 ever have seemed, really, because they seem to be quite bumpy, and even now a bit like a cord, I suppose, whereas this one just seems to be a line. So it's quite remarkable, the difference this time to the other times, albeit maybe they've been through the same scar twice the other times, but even the first time the scar was bigger. So yeah, in that respect, very good. If I had another baby, it would be another caesarean. So if I was to be offered the dressing again, I would certainly want the dressing again, because I think it was really good. It's all the time it was on, I was aware of the fact that it was doing some good, whereas it wasn't just left to nature to heal up and take your chance with it healing up. It was there. The negative pressure was working, so I knew that anything that was inside the wound that shouldn't be there would be, I suppose, sucked out. I don't know how it works, but I guess that's kind of how it works. And so there wouldn't. I expected it would be quite clean when I took it off, and it was. So that was a good feeling to know that it good was being done for that week, and it was one less thing to worry about. I guess I didn't have to worry, because that was the other thing with the other two. If the incision isn't covered, which it wasn't with the other two, that you've got more to worry about with clothing and so on, and keeping it clean and all the rest of it. Whereas you didn't have to worry about that, so it was good. It was far better.